Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Don't Copy That Floppy, your weekly video game news podcast, broadcasting live on Fridays 7 to 8 Eastern Standard Time. I'm your host, Lex. I'm joined by my often co-host,
Booge,
and a special guest co-host.
Say your name, Ben.
Me. Hello.
So we have Ben King with us, also known as BK Slider.
There you go. By only you.
By pretty much exclusively me, but I think I've said it enough that some people are also starting to call you that. Because I know Chris has, and I think
I call him that only when I'm talking to you.
Well, yeah, because otherwise,
Only
who
when
do you
you're in
think?
the-
Like, I'm not gonna know who you're talking about.
Right.
He'll be like Ben, and I'm like, who? Do I know anyone named Ben?
Who could that be?
You mean Burger King BK Slider?
Exactly.
Yes.
Because
I respond to any and all of those names.
Yes, as long as they have to do with Burger King, then yes.
There you
Product placement. Don't sue
Woo.
us. Anyway, it's Friday, June 22nd, and we have a good number of stories to talk about. Some of them from a few weeks back, because we have been on our post-E3 food coma hiatus after all those video game carbs that we took in. And we need to sleep it off for a week. So, we have some news from earlier in this month up until now. Some of that news includes Valve shirking all responsibility for everything ever. The Netherlands reminding Valve that they have responsibility for this. Bethesda embroiled in a lawsuit. Also, Sony and sort of their fallout from something that happened during E3, or that people found out about during E3. And then Microsoft's and Nintendo's clapback for that. Followed by the Red Shell. What is the Red Shell? We're going to talk about that later. And then some NPD numbers for the month of May. And if we have time, we may be discussing a little bit of Hearthstone drama.
Drama.
As usual,
Cards and drama.
Yep. As usual, we will end the show by discussing video games that just came out and that are about to come out. But for now, let's jump right into our first story. It is fitting that we talk about this now, as the summer Steam sales have just started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gabe is once again triumphant. But has he messed up? Has his company messed up, I should say, because he didn't write this blog post, but he certainly is okay with it because he didn't.
Of course, it was written by EJ.
Yeah. Well, you know EJ. Whoa.
Yeah. Good old EJ.
So this is a blog post from June 6th entitled, "Who Gets to Be on the Steam Store?" Now, we were expecting some sort of statement from Valve on this because we had done stories in the past, in past months, about games like Active Shooter, about things like, I forget what the game was.
Anime booby games.
Yeah, I can't remember what the specific ones were called, but they were taken off of Steam for a variety of issues. Things, and people were wondering, like, okay, what is Steam's policy? You guys need to make that clear. And they wrote a blog post, and they made the policy a lot more clear, although I would argue in the most important way, it is still fuzzy. But
yes, there's one line in particular, I'm like, you dropped the ball, guys.
Yeah, but...
Oh, yeah.
Overall, this whole post, and I'm not going to read it all because it's kind of long, but we'll read some excerpts from it. Overall, the general gist of this is Valve saying, hey, we don't want to curate anything. We're not going to restrict anything. The only thing we're going to stop from being on the service is something that is illegal. That's
straight up trolling.
Or straight up trolling. And that's,
whatever that means.
Yeah, that is the big line that that everyone is taking away from this. And now I need to find the document and I can't, but they were saying, yeah, it's gotta be straight up here it is.
Yeah.
It's gotta be
with
straight
this
up
principle in mind, we've decided that the right approach is to allow everything onto the Steam store except things that we decide are illegal or straight up trolling.
So yeah, two huge problems with both parts of that statement. But what were you gonna say, Ben?
Yeah, the wording of that is "we decide" are illegal, which I thought was also interesting.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, guys, but you're not lawmakers. You don't know why you get to decide what's illegal and what's not. So that's a weird little loophole they're leaving for themselves.
So the preamble of this whole thing, what they kind of what they're leading up to is saying that some of this is good information. They say that a lot of their bans in the past are not based on algorithmical decisions or payment decisions. It's just based on people actually looking at the games and deciding whether or not they should be on the platform.
Right.
And through this, they said that it's just too hard, really, to where to draw the line between creative freedom and stopping a game like active shooter or something, which is just purely in bad taste. And they realize that if they can't make everyone happy, then they're not going to try to make anyone happy.
Yeah.
And just let everything happen. They also mentioned that, obviously in different states and in different countries, different things are legal, and then some things are illegal, some things are legal in games. And in those places, they're going to try to adhere to the sovereign will of whatever country the game is sold in. But that's really it. That's the only thing they're going to try to do. Everything else is free ball. And personally, I'd like to hear Lex's and Ben's opinions on this because I'm actually good with this. I like this decision. I think that a free market is one that decides its own fate and what it wants and what it doesn't want. I think that if you're a person that's spending your own money on video games on Steam, then you should be an adult and read through the game and know what you're buying. And if you're buying anime novel games that let you touch anime girls, you know what you're buying. I'm like, you're not going to be shocked when it's not something that you thought it was, unless it's Doki Doki Literature Club. But I think that, I'm against censorship in all manners. And I think that more importantly, there can be different marketplaces with different rules. If you want a more safe, curated marketplace, buy a Switch. Nintendo has always had a heavy hand on what is allowed and not allowed on their platform. If you want the Wild West, we should have the Wild West. And to me, that's Steam. It's always been Steam, and I think it should continue to be. But that's my thought on the matter.
Yeah, I think it's interesting just from a personal standpoint because I've never used Steam as a marketplace to find new games or super indie games created by a guy in a week or something and just put on Steam. Yeah. And all these anime visual novels and everything. So I agree where I don't have a problem with this because it doesn't affect how I search for games or how I find what I want to play. So I guess maybe I'm biased in that aspect, but like you said, a free market for just PC gaming, I don't see how that can really just hurt in any way, because I was reading through the comments and people are talking about oh, but now where's the quality control of anything? But it's you said, it's if you kind of read and see what you're buying, it's you kind of have to be, that's on your end a little bit.
Yeah. There has to be some consumer responsibility.
Right.
For what the thing you're buying is.
And they mentioned in the article, it will, I don't know how, where this will be diverted, but it allows them to focus on other things, I think is, basically what they said, where they can kind of put their manpower into other, improving the platform of Steam itself.
Yeah, they talk about
fucking game.
Yeah, well, not making games. They didn't go crazy with that statement,
right?
But they said they were going to try and create and sort of bolster more tools for people to be able to curate their own content, which is something they've been talking about for a while. Most of those tools have kind of fallen flat, but maybe if they're given more attention, they could work. My big problem with this is there's part of it that feels very disingenuous to me because a lot of the clapback from Valve is not necessarily over games like visual novel stuff or active shooter, but is more over the fact that there are a lot of games on Steam that are asset flips or don't work or are just obvious money-making schemes to try and take advantage of the Steam trading card system. And it's that stuff to me needs to be looked into and sorted through. And a lot of this being like, we're just not going to, everything's welcome. Look, we're taking a non-censorship stance. Everybody is welcome here feels like they're deflecting from that issue. And that super bothers me. The other thing that I always come back to that really bothers me about this is I'm just like, every other online storefront that exists, especially one as big as Steam, do some amount of curation of the stuff that they sell, because they realize...
Not the iPhone market.
Yeah, well, maybe not the iPhone market. But most of them. Because they realize that it reflects on them, that they have some responsibility over the stuff that's on their marketplace. And with Steam making as much money as they do, and the fact that they're making money off these games. Now, if they were putting if Steam worked differently, like let's say the way Steam worked was it was really the super laissez-faire thing where they just said, hey, here's a platform, put games on it, and you
literally
can sell
anything.
Yeah, anything, and you can sell them. We won't make any money off of it. Our goal is to just put a platform up that people can sell stuff on. Then this statement from them to me would be 100% amazing, and I would be totally all for it. But I know that they're making money off of all these games.
Oh yes.
So it seems like, well, we want as many games as possible on the platform because that means we maximize our profit. But we don't want to take responsibility for if any of the things we're profiting from affect us negatively.
I think it's like what you're saying is absolutely true, and they are a company; they got to make money. And if you're Valve, you have to make all the money. But it's tough because I really think it's one thing or the other. It's like, do you want freedom or do you want censorship? And like with freedom comes people doing scam artists making scam games that are totally there to scam people and scam the card trade and stuff like that. But with that, you also get the opportunity to get really interesting, weird games that otherwise might not exist. Because like I'm thinking of like platforms like itch.io. Which I don't think actually they don't take any money from their games, but they're also not Steam. They're not big enough to acquire, like the new Assassin's Creed game when it comes out or whatever. So I think that, it's a tough, you can only have one or the other. I don't think you can actually have it both ways. And I just stand on the... Just let all the garbage flow in and let us decide for ourselves. And yes, people are scamming, but hopefully that shit will sink to the bottom if people have a little bit of self-control and a little bit of common sense.
And the whole curation tools thing that up to this point has not worked, I want those to work, and I want them to be made better and more thoughtfully. And if they could actually put a system in place to do that well, then and make that whole situation that you were talking about sort of work that way, that would be great, and I would love it. I guess it's also just that I have this sort of annoyance with a lot of 21st century tech companies, because a lot of them take this attitude towards their platforms. And
super libertarian.
And it's really starting to grate on my nerves, because I'm just like, you guys, you're responsible. You have responsibility for the things that you host. You gotta come on. But so I think it's interesting. I think I am interested to see how this will reflect on them in future stories. Oh wait, there is one.
Oh wait,
let's go to that.
Also, one last thing I wanted to say is that when you said all other storefronts kind of operate with a little bit more impunity or a little more control, that is true. But even still, you get things like Life of Black Tiger on PlayStation, there's certainly no perfect storefront. That's definitely true. I'd say Nintendo's probably the most curated if you're gonna go with something like that.
So then we talked about this a while back. The Netherlands have decided that they don't like loot boxes because they think they're predatory and gambling, because they are. So the Netherlands made a law basically saying like, hey, can't have loot boxes in these games. And as of the 20th, they have started enforcing it, and not abiding by this law means you could have an 830,000 euro fine or 500 bajillion US dollars.
Or $5 quadrillion.
Yes, no, it's actually about 959,000 US dollars, or
It's almost
1,300,000 Australian dollars. Is that what that's for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Australian bucks.
Oof, those kangaroos, they're not worth much.
The kangaroo economy is not doing great.
But yeah, so they have decided to put that into effect, and Valve, instead of trying to find a way to make this work by working with lawmakers and by working with the games on its platform, have just been like, yeah, we'll just take those features out.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
they have said that they do not understand or agree with the country's ruling, which I'm like, hey man, if you're all about laissez-faire capitalism, I guess you don't understand stuff like this.
Right.
But no, countries have rules that they enforce to protect consumers, and you kind of have to abide by them sometimes. So they have decided to, in that country, for CS, Go, and Dota 2 have just taken out the in-game marketplaces for those games. They do not function in those games at all in the Netherlands.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, well, no skins for Holland, I guess. No knife skins.
Yeah. Can't have those weird rainbow tie-dye knife skins. I don't know why you'd want a knife to look like that. Okay, I'm not going to get into that discussion.
Should we bring Peter Brown in here? Because he will tell you exactly why he wants a knife like that.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because it's like loot boxes have been, for the past however many years, like this whole kind of controversial topic because of stuff like this. But then, like you said, it's just at the end of the day, it's just, it's just like a tie-dye, headpiece for my guy in Dota or whatever. It's like absolutely purely cosmetic and has no effect on the game. So it's kind of, I get obviously why it's such a big deal, but it's also just kind of funny that the Netherlands made a law that you can't have your shiny new sword in Dota 2 on your hero.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, yeah, this went back, there's Netherlands, Finland, and then I think Denmark are pursuing this. A lot of European nations kind of started tackling this at the same time.
Right.
And we got words back from, I think it says somewhere in here that England decided it's not gambling. New Zealand decided
England,
it's
New
not
Zealand.
Yeah. Belgium is with the Netherlands on the issue. I think Denmark also a while back said that they're claiming that it is gambling. And yeah, I mean, they're coming from the standpoint that they think it encourages problematic behavior in young people, and that it's a gambling impulse. And there's actually a story today that I didn't put in, which was the World Health Organization adapting the game
addiction. I read about that.
Yeah.
I totally would have put that in if I had remembered. That was an interesting little story.
Which in that case I think is horseshit, because you can take the word gaming out of that and put in literally anything else. It's just addiction of a thing. And people have addictions of all kinds of sorts. Gaming addiction, it is real. It does happen. I know people that do play games addictively. And they have to break out of it because it starts ruining their lives in some cases. But this is, I think, a little more forthright. And it's also, I don't know. I respect a sovereign nation's right to disagree on what loot boxes are or aren't. Once again, I am a little bit more on. I'm definitely not a conservative in many political realms, but when it comes to games, I'm a little more conservative than not. I would rather, in all realms, when it comes to the video game industry, for governments to just stay out of it and let markets kind of work work themselves. But it is, I mean, it's their right to say, yeah, get that shit out of here. We don't want our kids buying FIFA $18 and Battleground stuff and Rocket League flags. So yeah, good for them, I guess. Good for them that they're actually pursuing it in a timely manner. That unlike the United States, which takes forever to get anything done legally.
Yeah. Speaking of FIFA, though, FIFA, or rather EA, is mentioned in this article because the FIFA loot box stuff is also under fire here. Apparently, the CEO, Andrew Wilson of EA, is saying that they're working with all industry associates globally and with regulators in various jurisdictions and territories, and have established that programs like FIFA Ultimate Team are not gambling. So this is a weird instance of where EA is basically like, no, it's not gambling. We decided it isn't. And then the Netherlands is like, no, but we decided it is. So we're
lawmakers.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see now that law's in effect, and EA's stance seems to be pretty hardline that it shouldn't affect them. Whether EA is going to get hit with a real big fine or not, and I'm curious to see what happens with that.
I mean, because it says like they're going to be hit with like $1 million, and then if they still don't do anything, they're going to continue to they're going to start looking to prosecute criminal proceedings or whatever. So who knows? I imagine they'll eventually buckle. But CEO Andrew Wilson is also the devil. He's the actual devil. He's the guy that does the E3 shows.
I've seen him in that suit. Yeah. No, I know.
But what were you going to say, Ben? I'm sorry.
It's just like, I guess, kind of going off of what Lex said about the previous thing with Steam and the whole just opening the marketplace to whatever because they're going to make money off of the games that come in. It's like whatever EA or Steam says about not understanding these laws, it's like, yeah, of course you don't. You want to be making money off of this. That's your whole purpose for any of these loot boxes. It's not for the good of the consumer most of the time.
No, they're companies.
Like,
they're made to.
Otherwise they'd be posting the whatever percent chance you have to get the rare items in there.
Right. That's actually, and I'm not. I guess I'm a little shocked that they didn't take a half step because, like in China, they have that. You have to do that for like loot boxes. You have to show your percentage chance. I'm surprised that the political powerhouse that is Holland just went straight for the neck, and instead of being like, no, you got to like. Maybe you should show the percentage chance. So they're just like, just fucking get rid of it all. Like, you got to get it all out of here.
That's true.
Yeah.
So we're talking about lawsuits. Let's move on to
more
a
lawsuits.
lawsuit that's actually definitely happening.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
From Polygon. Bethesda sues Warner Brothers, calls its Westworld game a blatant ripoff of Fallout Shelter. So Bethesda Softworks is suing Warner Brothers and Fallout Shelter co-developer Behavior Interactive over the recently released Westworld, alleging that the mobile phone game based on HBO's TV series is a, quote, blatant ripoff of Fallout Shelter. In a suit filed in Maryland's U.S. District Court, Bethesda alleged that Westworld developer and Behavior, and released this week for Android and iOS, has the same or highly similar game design, art styles, animation, features, and other gameplay elements as Fallout Shelter. Fallout Shelter came out in 2015. It's been ported to everything. Bethesda said in the suit that Behavior uses, quote, the same copyrighted computer code created for Fallout Shelter in Westworld, alleging that the bug evident in the earlier version of Fallout Shelter, which was later fixed, also appears in Westworld. Bethesda alleges that the company's, quote, copied Fallout Shelter features and then made cosmetic modifications to Westworld's Western theme. This is interesting because Bethesda loves suing people, or trying to sue people. They've done this before. Probably the most crazy one is when they tried to sue Mojang because they made a game called Scrolls, and they thought that they had the word Scrolls copyrighted.
Yep.
That was a fun one. But this one, I think, has more credence, as I think that thing, especially about, like, yeah, we know it's the same code because it has the same bugs that we had.
Yeah. The title of the article itself actually really doesn't do it justice, because when you think of like Fallout Shelter or like any mobile game, it's like, yeah, they all kind of end up looking the same if they're the same genre. But this is like actually a copy.
Yeah.
You know, took code from Fallout Shelter and put it in this game and put a skin on it.
Yep. And, you know, that's kind of a, once again, like we were talking about with Steam, that's like asset flipping and doing that kind of scummy shit is something that like nobodies do usually, but it's like when you're making a tie-in to a HBO show from Warner Brothers, and Behavior Interactive's not a big company, but they've been around, like they're a real company. They're not just some dude in his basement making active shooter, you know. So it's amazing that they thought they could get away with this, and they're probably going to lose in a lawsuit because, I mean, Bethesda has the ZeniMax. They're going to bring their lawyers to bear and they're probably just going to settle this out of court, I think, and just be like, whoops, yeah, you caught us. Here's some money. Leave us alone. Interesting. I looked up Behavior Interactive, the kind of games that they made. They made such great games as Monster House. The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Tipped in Trouble.
Sweet.
And let's see, the High School Musical, Making the Cut for the DS, Wii, and PS2. Real
oh my
good
gosh,
shit.
this is I've got all these games. These are great games.
Stacked lineup here. Yeah.
Probably the biggest ones they made were Dante's Inferno, if you remember that game from 2010, and Naughty Bear. If y'all remember Naughty Bear, that piece of fucking garbage.
I don't remember that.
It was horrible. I don't suggest it. You play a murderous teddy bear, and it was glitchy and crap. But yeah, I think unlike usually with Bethesda, they're probably in the right with this one.
Yeah, I mean, man, that is just so lazy. That studio is just so lazy because they could then not only are they copying this game and clearly reskinning it, and they must be using that code, but they couldn't even have paid attention to the dev cycle of the game that they're ripping off and then have gone and fixed some of those bugs. Come on.
Yeah.
So
gotta slap this shit together before Westworld gets canceled.
Yeah. Yep. So,
and I mean, the sad thing is that it's probably already made a bunch of money because Westworld's super popular. They announced it, and it's like a bunch of people probably already scooped it up. So I wonder what the kind of reparations will be for Bethesda.
How much money will Bethesda make?
Right, exactly.
Let's find out, shall we?
They'll make all the money, as they usually do.
Speaking of a company that's losing out on some goodwill and probably some money as a result.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
During E3, there was a whole kerfuffle because we found out that Fortnite was going to be on the Switch, which everyone was very happy about because it was free to play on the Switch. So a bunch of people obviously downloaded it for their Switches. But for those who don't know, for the 1% of the population who has not played Fortnite, when you install Fortnite, you have an Epic Games account that you make. And the usefulness of that is, it has your ranking, it has all that on it, and Fortnite is on all these different platforms, so you can make your Epic Games account and then log in on the different device that you have Fortnite on to play it, and you don't lose any of your stuff. Always helpful. So when people who had been playing Fortnite on their PS4 decided that they would download Fortnite on their Switch, when they tried to log into their Epic Games account, they discovered that they could not do that because there is no crossplay between the PS4 and the Switch, and also the accounts cannot cross.
Yes.
So a bunch of people just kind of got locked out of all of their progress that they had made in Fortnite. So that wasn't good.
No.
This one's totally bizarre, I think. I'll say that there are some games that I play, like Street Fighter V has crossplay between PC and PS4. I don't know if it's account, you can swap accounts between each, but you can play against opponents on each. And the only issue I could ever see of that being coming up is if connections are weirder between the crossplay, but even in Street Fighter, you can choose to ignore PlayStation.
That's interesting.
games.
I actually didn't know that about.
Yeah, so you can play only PC versus PC if you want, but if you have a friend playing PS4, you can play with them. You just, you have that option. And it seems kind of wild to just deny your customers that.
Right. So this is interesting because this is not. I didn't know that about Street Fighter. That is interesting because historically, with a lot of other games, Sony has been bad about this. About a year ago, they did this with Minecraft, where they don't allow crossplay on Minecraft, and it is it's embarrassing for Sony. Like I can't think of any other word
Yeah.
to say, but it's like what kind of like shit-headed like what's on your mind? Why are you doing this? Like it doesn't make any sense to me because especially for Sony, they're the leading platform right now. Um, and Fortnite is the biggest game of all time. And why would you ever want to look bad in this situation? You know,
Yeah.
like this does not make sense. And it's my guess is that at some point in Sony, probably a long time ago, some policy was made that they're like, yeah, we're just not going to have crossplay and stuff, and it was probably years ago. And Sony's a huge battleship that takes forever to turn around, and because it's like it's hard coded policy, they're like scrambling now, and they're just like, ah, shit. Should we rescind this? Should we turn it back or not?
Yeah.
Because boy, it makes them look bad, and it makes them look bad, especially coming to a time where we're gonna have new consoles out soon, and it's looking like Sony, and this happens every console life cycle, where whatever dominant force in the market, whether it's Microsoft or Sony, or back in the day Nintendo, when they're on top of the world, they start accruing hubris. And then it builds and builds until they're about to launch a new thing, and their hubris spills over, and everyone's like, "Fuck you, we're going with the other side."
Yeah.
You know, it happened. It happened with Sony with the launch of the PS3 when they said, "Yeah, we people will get another job to afford a PS3. We don't care." Happened with Xbox when they came out with the Xbox One originally, and then there's all this arcane
you'll love always online.
yeah, online all the
Right.
time, and it's like all this crazy shit, and everyone's like, "Fuck you, we're going back to Sony." And it looks like Sony is building the hubris again, and you could see it at E3, I think. Like you had Xbox's conference, which was Phil Spencer saying all the right shit. He's like, "Yep, we got a ton of games. We acquired a bunch of studios." They even talked a little bit about the future of hardware. You know, they're like, "Yep, we're looking towards the future." And then you had Sony did this like weird art experiment for an E3 press conference that had everyone being like, "What the fuck is going on?" It's like, yeah, you showed games, but what the hell is going on? And yeah, I think especially in a time when we also have Switch, which everyone fucking loves the Switch. Everyone loves Fortnite. If you're not being on that train, not getting on that train, not getting on that tide that rises all boats is a horrible business move on Sony's part, I think.
And and the whole way the Switch is marketed and the way it sort of lives in the marketplace is as a second console, so crossplay is more relevant than ever.
Absolutely.
And I'll also say that now that I think about it, the only reason that the example I gave with Street Fighter V is that way is because they had some deal with Capcom where it's not on Xbox. They only released it on PS4 and PC.
That's
So
true, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the only reason why they themselves let themselves do that.
Yeah, and it probably was even like contentious between Capcom because Capcom's probably like we need it on PC, and Sony's like fine,
Yeah.
you know.
I have a fun bit of anecdote from a different article that I found, which was the supposed reason why Sony does this. And it's from John Smedley, who used to be the head of Sony Online Entertainment.
Yeah.
He was asked about this, and his quote was, when I was at Sony, the stated reason internally for this was money. They didn't like someone buying something on an Xbox and it being used on a PlayStation. Simple as that. Dumb reason, but there it is.
I mean, it's a very likely reason. It's money, you know.
Yeah.
I can see that. It's stupid because I don't think that plays out in the long term, but it totally makes sense from like an executive's position to be like, yeah, we want them only to be on our console. It's like, well, I don't know if that's the future. Connectivity is the future, not isolationism.
Yep. So naturally, Nintendo and Microsoft are not gonna miss this opportunity to just, as you said earlier, dunk on Sony real hard.
They're dunking hard.
So another story from the 21st from yesterday. Nintendo and Microsoft team up to promote crossplay while Sony remains silent. So there is a commercial, a Nintendo Switch commercial for Minecraft on the Nintendo Switch, and the entire commercial is a woman with an Xbox controller and a kid with a Switch controller playing together in the same Minecraft game. And it's just 30 seconds and like a montage of that stuff. And that's all the commercial is.
Yeah, and I think the best is the ad campaign they're running or whatever is that it's split right in the middle into two screens, and then it comes up on one side is green and one side is red, and then it just has like the red side just says together, and then the other one cycles through like I think it's like build, survive, craft together. One of my favorite memes that's come out of this is the Sony one where it's just a full blue screen and it just says do everything alone. It's like is pretty good. But yeah, this is some hard dunksmanship from the other two console leaders, and I think it's great because they need to. I think it's a very smart move on Microsoft's position to be like, no, fuck you guys, we want connectivity. It's good for business.
Gotta have as many people playing this Minecraft as possible, and it's really best for the game devs, right? Like it's perfectly fine for the console makers. It doesn't hurt them, I would not say, but it really bolsters the game devs in a significant way. So that's why I'm always happy about it, because I care about the game devs a little more than I care about the console makers in most scenarios.
Absolutely. This was actually a thing with Psyonix, the makers of Rocket League, when they were asked a while ago when their game came out, because the same thing happened with Sony then when there was no crossplay there was crossplay for PC and Xbox, but not fucking PS4 and anything else. And they were asked about it, and they're like, we'd absolutely love everyone to be able to play together. And they said it's like literally just the switch of the press of a button, the flip of a switch. It's not a hard thing to make happen, like on the software side. It's just that we're legally not allowed to. So really lame on Sony's part.
So yeah, I'm glad that that Microsoft and Nintendo are taking advantage of that, and hopefully that'll help them out and just pull Sony down a peg. But yeah, no, it is amazing as to what you were talking about earlier with the hubris that's built up, because we just see the same arc play out every console cycle. It's amazing to me that they never learn from it. Like, no company ever learns from it. It's not just that this is a Sony problem. Like, every company that gets on top then gets hubris and then falls, and then someone else wins the next console cycle. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, no, it's it's the Ouroboros of of the industry. It's very strange that it does. No one ever learns this shit. I wonder out of this particular thing, like Nintendo and Microsoft, if we're going to see them partner up on more stuff, because at least from E3, we see that Nintendo is being a lot more loosey-goosey and a a lot more friendly with a lot of companies, like with Ubisoft especially.
Oh, they've got that. They've got that in game where you buy a toy ship and you can buy the Star Fox toy ship.
Yep. And play StarCraft. Star Fox.
StarCraft.
You wish it was StarCraft. When is Nintendo
used to be able to play StarCraft on 64? It was great.
That's true. When is Nintendo going to team up with Blizzard? You thought that was rhetorical, but actually there are lots of rumors that Diablo is getting ported to the Switch, so probably next year.
Yeah, makes sense. I wonder if Nintendo and Sony will do. Nintendo and Microsoft will do a little bit more friendly things, like I don't know. Maybe see Master Chef in that new Smash game that has 5 quadrillion characters.
Or
be interesting.
Or maybe we'll get Waluigi in the next Halo game.
Or yes, he's the main character.
Think about it.
That'd be excellent.
Fill in those slots.
But really, I could see stuff like Microsoft owns Rare now, and I could see something like Phil Spencer being in a Nintendo Direct, being like, "Hey, Rare has a storied history with Nintendo, so we're going to put Rare Replay on the Switch, and we're going to publish Rare games on the Switch because they have this deeply seated connection," or something like that.
Yeah, and I think one of the other big takeaways from this is I want to give props to Nintendo, because we've seen Microsoft work with team up with people in the past. This is not super outside of the box for them. But yeah, Nintendo rarely does stuff like this. It really only has been since the launch of the Switch that they have started doing stuff like this, and it seems to be greatly beneficial to them, which, like, obviously it would be. It's it's annoying that it took them this long to figure that out, especially since, as we recall, back in the N64 days, I think they were much more willing to work with other companies as well, and prior to that. But it's good that they've finally taken that looser stance. I'm just really happy that they're being smart about a lot of their decisions during the Switch's life cycle.
Yeah.
Obviously not compromising any of their own identity and while doing that as well.
Because that's been their citation of concern in the past is like, because of their curated marketplace. Is they were like, in the past they were always like, oh, we don't want as many other people to be on our marketplace, partially because we're worried about mature content. We don't want mature content in the Nintendo store because we are family friendly. But with the Switch's life cycle, they're like, nah, Bethesda can put Doom on the Switch. You don't get
Doom on here. Get Wolfenstein, or let's kill some Nazis on the Switch.
Yeah, no, we're cool with it. So awesome.
No, and I mean it's interesting because Nintendo always had this conservative stance because that's how they started as a company. They came out of the collapse of Atari, and the wash of really low quality games for years and years is what killed the industry for a little bit. And then Nintendo came along, and that's why they have the Nintendo seal of approval, because they actually made sure that companies could only produce like one game a year for their system, that they had to be rigorously tested, so that like the quality of everything on the NES was super high, which isn't completely true. There's a lot of garbage on there too, but like that's their history. That's where they come from, and I think that it's taken a long time. Like they messed up a little bit by giving like Philips CDI some property with like the Zelda franchise.
Oh, yeah, forgot about that.
But I don't know why that happened. It was very strange. But I think that that's like the core of their company. It's been that way for 30 plus years. And yeah, they're starting to wiggle a little bit, and it's a good time to do it because they're on top. And it's like, fuck it, like the Switch is awesome. Let get everyone on here.
All right, so let's talk about the infamous Red Shell. Since we were just talking about Nintendo, there's a company that has been named for an item in Mario Kart.
Yeah,
and it's just as annoying as that item in Mario Kart is. So, marketing spyware caught in PC games, but makers reject that label. Ad campaign tracker Red Shell removed from about 20 games already. Great little graphic they have up here.
Yeah, I like that.
But it turned out that a bunch of PC games, including such notable ones as Elder Scrolls Online and Conan Exiles, had this little app installed on them called Red Shell that basically tracked users' data.
Specifically through like social media stuff.
Yeah, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, stuff like that, trying to see what kind of ads they were interested in, so then it could just optimize their ad viewing experience. And this is the kind of thing that we see on social media, like Twitter or YouTube or Facebook. But the difference is that on those pieces of social media, we know that those algorithms are in place and that there are ads, being curated for us to get us to buy more stuff. Or at least if we're smart consumers, we know that. But on these games, nothing was in the game's fine print that this software was being used. So people were a little upset when they found out about it.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so video games often use telemetry or algorithmic systems to pick up information about how you play the game. Like what hours do you play the game? How do you actually like the choices you make in the game? Most recently, it was actually cool because Pillars of Eternity 2, which came out recently, is a great game. When you start the game, it asks you, hey, can we use telemetry on your game to give us feedback about how you play so that we can make our games better? It gives you the option to say yes or no. You can opt out of the telemetry. And I think that's great. And this is the same thing, this Red Shell thing, which I had not heard about any of this, so this is fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
I would not have a problem with this because it's basically, so I believe the developers, when they say it's so that we can optimize our ads for you, which is, what a dystopian cyberpunk world we live in. That's like, no, we want to make our ads better. It's not, okay. I would be fine with this if this was right in the beginning of the game, if it was an opt-in or opt-out. If it's just like, hey, we have algorithmics that look at your habits. Can we use those? Yes or no? You know. But the fact that it was all hidden in this stuff and just no one was saying anything is kind of skeezy.
Yeah, there's also the fact that it's following what you're doing outside the game. Like if if it's confined to the game space, I also have way less of a problem with it. Although I don't know how you'd be able to figure out what ads people are watching within a game space unless they're on iOS.
Whoa.
So, but yeah, so that is one of those things where I'm like, I don't think it's unreasonable for people to be flipping out that software is looking at other parts of their computer that that it's outside of its purview, and I think that they didn't say that they had it. Now, the Red Shell, the company that makes Red Shell, were like, heck no, we're not spyware. We don't sell any of this data to a third party. And I'm like, dude, that's one of the things that spyware stuff does, but it's not the only criteria.
Right.
Yeah, and all like the responses that I've read from the developers too were like, I mean, this is super helpful for us and we'd really love to break it down for you, but it's too bad you guys don't want us to use it. Otherwise, it'd be great. Is like kind of the vibe you get from a lot of the responses, but everyone else is just like, you didn't ask.
Yeah, and that's the simple thing is it's like they can explain it all they want. It's like you just didn't ask for any of this,
right?
Like, and especially this comes in a time where we just dealt with Mark Zuckerberg standing in front of Congress.
Right.
And being asked, hey, what the fuck are you doing with our data? Like, why did that happen? It's not a good look when a shit ton of companies, some big, some really small, are using something that is taking your data without letting you know. And sure, they're probably not selling it for nefarious reasons, but who's to say they don't get hacked? And then all of a bunch of fucking data is out there about everyone that plays these games. That's skeezy. And I think that this is just a simple thing of just ask to do it. Just be like, ask if you want it or not. And you'll be fine. I bet most people would click through and be like, yeah, whatever. I don't read the EULA. Nobody does.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. And they'd probably still get like 80 to 90% of people with it on.
Totally.
But I did bring up a list, Reddit has been digging through code of games and found a list of games that have it. And there's a bunch of there's quite a few big games. I was actually kind of surprised how many big games there were. Mostly it's smaller games with great names, some of them. So big ones like Elder Scrolls Online, Conan Exiles, Holy Potatoes, we're in space.
The biggest game that's out right now.
Oh yeah.
I know.
I know when Ninja's streaming later.
Exactly, with Drake. All the Total War games. That sucks. Because that's a big thing. The Vermintide games, Dead by Daylight, which I've heard of. Magic the Gathering Arena. That's unfortunate. Escapist 2 is pretty big. Civilization 6. Come on, Firaxis. I thought we were cool.
Yeah.
That kind of breaks my heart. I always trusted Sid Meier. Kerbal Space Program. Heroin Anthem Zero. I don't know what that is. Trying to see the other big ones in here. Doodle Gods, a lot of people play.
Injustice 2.
Injustice 2. Yep. Tales from Candlekeep, Tomb of Annihilation.
Ooh, dang.
Oh, yeah.
Even Wizards of the Coast isn't on it.
Goofed up.
Yeah. A lot of people talk about Yoku's Island Express. I don't know what it is, but I've heard it a lot. So a lot of smaller games, but some big ones in there, and it's like that's really unfortunate that they just someone did this knowingly, whether it was just somebody in programming or if it was like a higher up decision from these games to just be like, yeah, we're putting it in there and not telling anyone. It's like that's pretty skeezy. Some pretty skeezy behavior.
Yep.
What's even skeezier, I think, is the fact that all of these people are walking it back now. They're like, oh, we're taking it out. It's like, yeah, you got caught is what happened. You got caught with a fucking hand in the cookie jar. Bullshit.
I don't even like cookies. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I've never eaten a cookie before in my life. I'm diabetic.
Oh my god. So, actually, I wanted to ask you guys, would this stop you from playing a game that has this stuff in it?
You
Like,
know,
if
I think it.
like if like Sid Meier was like, no, we're not taking it out, would you still play Civ 6?
I
I
think
mean, that's interesting because I think there have been posts about like how to just remove it yourself too, like in the files of the game. I think a few of them have it that you
Yeah, it's
can
just like
take
it's just a DLL file, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if it wasn't,
Right.
like, I don't know. That's like maybe not,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
It's tough. I think on the PC game market, because this is on the PC game market, it's an easier question because there are so many PC games that I have that I can play, so I can kind of feel like, oh, well, I'll play something else in my Steam library that doesn't have that.
Right.
If it's a game I love the shit out of, or that I just bought or something, then yeah, I might spend some significant time looking around on the internet to try and figure out how to remove the file.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be more of not even the fact that it's this, algorithm or whatever that's looking at my activity, but if like one of the game developers said like, no, we're not going to do it, I might refuse to play their game just out of the fact that they aren't willing to do anything for their,
Yeah, they lack the moral fiber to
for their audience. They aren't willing to make compromises or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if Assassin's Creed will compromise and put a female character in a game, then that's the least that Holy Potatoes Were in Space could do, to take this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. All right, let's talk about the MPD numbers.
It's the most wonderful time of the month. It's the MPD. I actually, as we get to the end of the show, I'm just feeling more and more skeezy about the game industry. This whole show has been about this game industry is so fucking skeezy and selfish. So NPD, we all know them. They are an analytics group that track the video game industry, specifically sales. And while not all sales are included, there's some games that opt out of. You have to opt in to give information to the MPD group. A lot of people do. Some people don't, like BattleNet doesn't and stuff. So there's some big glaring omissions. Free-to-play games obviously aren't on here, so you won't see things like Fortnite up here, but it's still a good snapshot of the industry. Mm-hmm. Numbers for May. Hardware sold, we'll do the year-to-date specifically. Hardware is sold 1.3 billion, which is up 15% from last year. PC and console software sold 2.16 billion, which is up 7%. And accessories sold 1.4 billion, up 29%. Everyone loves accessories.
Wow.
Everyone loving them accessories, which I mean, I guess would make sense for PSVR sales.
I was going to say that VR is probably a decent reason for them.
Yeah, that, and you got that Nintendo cardboard.
Nobody's buying that.
That's true. Know about that. So yes, and they talk about overall, I believe we're a little bit down from last year, but there's some reasons for that, but not down very much, 4%, I think, overall. And so here's a look at the actual top-selling software, which is the fun stuff. As they say, reminder, these numbers don't count digital sales from storefronts such as BlizzardBattle.net, as those publishers do not release their sales info. Software, best-selling, May. Number 1, State of Decay fucking 2, which really surprised me.
Yeah.
Really fucking surprised me. So I love State of Decay. I bought State of Decay 2. I like it, even though I know it's a janky mess, and the second one is too, which is disappointing. They're janky, weird games with great little loops, little gameplay loops in them. I've found them fun because they're like really catered to something I want to play. But to be the best-selling game above some really heavy hitters is very surprising to me.
Mm-hmm.
Have either of you guys played State of Decay at all?
No,
I've not, but I've heard you talk about it.
Yeah.
Multiple occasions.
Yeah, it's fun. The second one's fun too, but it is janky and a little broken. But, nonetheless. Number 2, God of Boy. Which, number 3, Detroit Become Mediocre. Number 4 is Far Cry 5. Number 5 is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. That does not include digital sales. Number 6, our Lord and Savior Grand Theft Auto 5, never to leave the list. It's been on the list since it's come out, I think, in 2013.
Yeah. That's wild.
I don't know how it still sells. I don't know.
Yeah,
like, who
you'd think
doesn't.
everyone has a copy of it already. Like,
I know. Apparently not. Number 7, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. We got number 8, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, also been on the list for a very, very long time. Number 9, Mario Kart 8, not including digital sales. Number 10, NBA 2K18. Number 11, MLB The Show. Number 12, Call of Duty World War II. Is that the last one that came out? I've lost track of them. Number 13, Super Mario Odyssey, not including digital sales. Number 14, Breath of the Wild, not including digital sales. Number 15, FIFA 18, no PC digital sales included, which I can't imagine is very much. Number 16, Overwatch, no PC digital sales included. That's pretty crazy.
I was just thinking that. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, so that is boxed copies of Overwatch, which I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
More you know.
Number 17, Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. Pretty cool that it's made it on the top 20. I've heard it's actually a great collection. If you're a big Street Fighter fan, it's got all kinds of like random stuff in there, and obviously the games are great. Number 18, I keep on saying Battle Unknowns, Player Unknowns Battlegrounds. Number 19, Ass Creed Origins, and number 20, Monster Hunter World, still hanging on. I think it's still the best-selling Capcom game of all time.
I think you're right.
Yeah, it was the fastest selling Capcom game, and then it was like, oh, and also it's our best selling game of our whole history. Like, that's crazy. So that's besides State of Decay, not too surprising. Detroit's higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah. That actually surprised me quite a bit because I always felt like the David Cage games were sort of the review darling type of games. Like, really hoity-toity people loved them, but I didn't think they actually, like, sold super well. But yeah, if it made it to number 3, it sold pretty well.
Yes, yeah, right below God of Boy.
Boy.
And then that's pretty much it. Xbox One, nothing too crazy on there. State of Decay on top as well, and that's really does surprise me. And pretty much everyone else falls in line. Nintendo Switch. Yeah, pretty much. We got Skyrim on number 10. Just go with Skyrim. Can never get rid of it. And so most fun, I guess, is the best-selling games of 2018 thus far. Is Far Cry 5 is number 1, God of War is 2, Monster Hunter World is 3, Call of Duty World War II is 4. Number 5 is Dragon Ball Fighter Z, or Fighters, however you want to fucking say it. Number 6 is Grand Theft Auto 5. And then we got NBA, we got MLB, we got Mario Kart, and PUBG. So,
Dragon Ball Fighters is could potentially get a boost because that's about to come out on another platform, on the Switch.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's definitely going to do very well on Switch, I think. I think that's going to be right at home. I think Switch is going to... I mean, it's already killing it. But the fact that games like Fighters and Fortnite are out on it now is like, it's gonna go through the roof again.
Yeah.
And it's gonna get that fucking Smash Brothers, which
every character.
I mean, it's literally every video game character ever made. For any game.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
So yeah,
confirmed.
NPD confirmed.
So Ben, do you want to talk about Hearthstone?
Yeah, we can real quick at the end. I just think this story is about how what is it? They had a tournament in Seoul. I think it's over. I don't know if it's actually still going on or not. Where mid-tournament, kind of in between some of the phases of it, they released game changes, not to like specific cards, but to the mechanics of the game itself that affected some of the decks that players had brought. And without like any warning, and the players had already locked in their decks for the tournament. And there was like in terms of the community, a pretty big uproar about that. Not just in the competitive scene, but in the fact that the cards that were affected, normally when they do balance changes, the players are allowed some sort of refund where you can kind of, disenchant the card and get like a full refund for it kind of thing, so you can craft new cards if you want. That wasn't the case for this, and there's a big uproar on like Twitter and on Reddit and everything. And it's kind of an interesting story because it's recently their main community head / one of like the designers that has been with the game since like the very beginning, recently left, and I think this
Which
is
guy
like
was it?
Ben Brode. Yeah, I guess is his name.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He left like a couple months ago, right after they released their new, expansion, their new block of cards.
Interesting. He's
And
been with
so
the
I
company for a
think,
long time.
yeah, I mean, actually, I think I was actually reading about it. They started like brainstorming the idea of like Hearthstone like 10 years ago, and he
Yeah.
has been with it since then.
Yeah.
And I think this is them possibly still kind of like working out their own kinks where they don't have this community head who knows how to kind of deal with this stuff, and them going at it themselves. Whoever, is the head, the face of the game now. I don't actually know, but
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting kind of, seeing them still working some stuff out, because they reverted one of the changes, and they allowed players in the tournament to then change their decks.
Good. It's a rare hiccup in Blizzard handling competitive stuff, because usually they're very, very good about handling competitive stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly.
They made the fucking Overwatch League, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, and they were pretty quiet about it, like up until the tournament too, where at least the tournament organizers were like, "Sorry, we can't change anything." So
that's wild.
So yeah, that was probably, I guess, the biggest controversy in Hearthstone's community that there ever will be, because it's not a very controversial.
This is it. This is the high point. This is
it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there has been and will be something.
Is there card poses? Have they gotten shit for making their characters too sexy and having to change the pose slightly?
No, because Hearthstone is too cartoony, so they don't.
Yeah, it's too cartoony, and it's too non-animated and too 2D.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's been the Hearthstone Minute with Ben King. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
We're gonna have you on anytime that you hear about Hearthstone.
I'll just jump in the Discord.
And we'll toss it to Ben, our chief Hearthstone executive.
Yeah, for some reason I still play that game.
I would if I weren't so far behind.
Yeah.
So we have games that came out recently. I realized we haven't done a real show since the beginning of the month, because we did a bunch of broadcasting specifically for commentary on E3 stuff, but we didn't do like a show. So games that have come out in June. Let's see. Oh, Shaq Fu came out.
Yay!
Well, I haven't bought it yet, but listen, I'm gonna have to.
Oh, God. Why would you?
No, I really shouldn't. Vampire came out. Which
was playing earlier.
Yeah, it was being streamed earlier on our channel.
It's from the very little I've played, very cool. It's like a AA game, made by Don't Nod, makers of Life is Strange, and it's very reminiscent of immersion sims, kind of like a Deus Ex or System Shock or BioShock or Prey. The new Prey is very much like that. So small open world with like kind of movable social mechanics and stuff like that. I like what I've played so far. I'm going to play more, probably on stream.
Let's see. On the 9th, we had Unravel 2 come out. Did anyone care? Probably not.
No. Yarny. You can have Yarny friends.
Yay. On the 10th, we had Fallout Shelter come out on the Nintendo Switch and the PS4 in Bethesda's...
I think that's supposed to read Westworld.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had the Westworld game come out on all platforms. But no, continuing Bethesda's push to get all of their games on everything.
Yes.
Right. And let's see, then we had on the 12th, Fortnite Battle Royale came out on the Switch. Hollow Knight also came out on the Switch, worth mentioning, because that game is freaking sweet.
It was pretty sweet.
What else did we have?
Jurassic World Evolution.
Yeah, no, we don't need to talk about that.
Business Simulator.
They made a Lego Incredibles game, which I had no idea they were making, but it came out.
Yeah,
came
there's
out.
Legos. There's a Lego game for every property, I think.
Yeah.
In the world.
And then today.
Oh, I'm sorry, you missed Nostalgic Train.
Yeah, you might want
to. It's a walking sim.
Excuse you, Lex. Nostalgic Train. I mean, come on.
Funny that a game with train in the title is a walking sim.
And not a train simulator.
Yeah. Amazing. I need to check that out on Steam.
Yes.
So, today we had Mario Tennis Aces come out for the Nintendo Switch. And then
Oh, yeah.
New Gundam Breaker. Wow. Come out for the PS4.
It is a mech game only.
Yes. So
I'm sure Kyle Goins is very excited.
but yeah, I actually am really excited to play Aces at some point. I don't know when I'm going to be buying it, but I'm definitely going to be buying it probably next month or two.
Yeah. Mario Tennis games are fun.
They are. They're really fun. I'm excited to check it out. So let's see. Then coming up, we have De Blob Remastered.
Nice.
For the Nintendo
Hunting
Switch.
Simulator.
Yeah, nice.
Wanted.
Oh yeah, Nier Automata for the Xbone. That's cool.
Big for them
There you go.
to get that.
The Awesome
Luminous,
Adventures.
A lot of people like Luminous. I never played it.
Oh, do they? I'm not familiar with that. But
it was a PSP game that was a kind of a cult classic.
Oh, cool. But yeah, so The Adventures of Captain Spirit, which is something that was shown off at E3, that's going to be coming out on the 26th for the Windows, the PS4, and the Xbone. And what else do we have here? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, what is that? Yes, 8 for the Nintendo Switch?
Of course, it's the Lacrimosa of Dana.
Obviously.
Why don't you know
How
this?
could we forget?
Yeah. And then, oh goodness gracious me, the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy is coming to the Switch, the Windows, and the Xbone on the I thought that was already out on more than just the PlayStation because it sells so well. But
Right.
apparently it was only out on the PlayStation and it was still doing those sales numbers. So get ready for the Crash Insane Trilogy to have insane sales numbers again when everyone buys it for all the other consoles.
Yeah, get out of here, State of Decay. We're going to be seeing Crash right up there again. I also wanted to mention, you made a joke about how Bethesda's putting everything out on everything. So that the joke about Skyrim on the Alexa, it wasn't a joke. You can actually play Skyrim on Alexa. And it's D&D. Like, it's just like, where would you like to go? Up the mountain. And then it, like, describes you, like, going up the mountain.
Wait, that you can that's actually a thing?
Yes. If you have an Alexa, you can play Skyrim on Alexa.
Wow. Now I wish I had an Alexa so I could play that. Sounds
so you
great.
can play the game, you can play on anything else.
Yeah. I just like that they committed to the joke and actually made it on Alexa.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's great. That's just great. So that's about it for us. We're out of time.
Oh, yeah.
So out of time.
And Lex is all drugged up.
I'm on so many drugs, you guys.
Legal drugs.
I've been so sick. So this has been Don't Copy That Floppy, weekly video game news podcast. Broadcasting live Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/DCTF podcast. If you want to check out our show archives, there's great places to do that. One of them is our amazing benefactor, chipbit.net. Go over there, listen to their 24-hour chiptune radio. It's pretty darn good. And you can listen to our episodes there, obviously. You can also go over to our iTunes and listen to our episodes there. Quick note for iTunes listeners, you probably have already figured this out if you're listening to this episode on iTunes. But if you're listening to this on Twitch and are like, iTunes is not telling me that you have new episodes, there is a glitch with the feed that goes from chipbit.net to iTunes that basically just strips the time encoding off of the file. Or the date encoding off of the file. So it does go to iTunes, but it does not display as the most recent episode chronologically. So you have to scroll through until you find the episode number that you're looking for, which is kind of a pain, but I'm talking to the guy who runs chipbit.net to try and see if we can resolve that issue. But yeah, so check that out there. If you're on there, leave a rating and review. It would be super helpful. And finally, we can be found on social media on Twitter at DCTF Podcast. And we pretty much always post when we're going to go live, and we post when a new episode is up on iTunes and ready to listen to. Finally, last thing, if you have all sorts of money, we have a Patreon, and you can donate to it and give us money to do the show. I think that's everything.
If you donate to us, we'll take Red Shell out of the podcast.
Yeah, yep.
Oh,
Stop mining all your data. So, I don't know which one of you would like to do it, but until next time, one of you needs to tell me what people need to remember.
The Netherlands would like to remind you to not copy that floppy.